Well, I don't know. Um, I don't know how I did it, but I I I lit the propane, and it's on, and we're at 7,000. So I don't know if it's gonna stay on. Yeah, look, see the little flame in there, in the little pilot window there. It's on, and I have it at 5. Let it run and see what happens. This is the first time at this high altitude that it's working. I don't see. I don't get it. Okay, so we'll investigate this tomorrow. This pilot junk. Yeah, big rocks. All right, let's go inside and get something to eat. Let me relax a little bit. I want to try the radio. See if I get something. Oh, you make plans and then something else happens. I never thought that the forestry would go in here and pile this huge amount of garbage back here. So I'm just gonna hang the keys on the key hook, and I should have put something on the front tires because it's downhill. I'm just tired. I don't wanna mess with that. So let's see. I want to make a soup or something warm. I'm gonna hit the sack early. 7:30. So let's see. I left at 2. Got here at 7:30. 7 o'clock more or less because I've been doing things now. But yeah, it's a pain. All right. See you later. Tomorrow, possibly. So good morning. Last night got a little nippy. After I had the soup and kind of put things away and stuff, and I looked at the thermometer and it was 43. It wasn't cold, but it was nippy. And I have my sleeping bag on top. I threw it up there in the bag because I have a feather comforter. So I said this might be enough. I also got a blanket here, but the blanket got wet, so I gotta wait for that to dry. Gotta put it outside today. And so yeah, I got a little nippy last night. And I mentioned that the lights went out all of a sudden. And I noticed that, I took out my lamps and my flashlight and stuff, and I looked around here in the panel, snapped the breakers on and off, the switch that goes from 110 to 12 volts. I switched that back and forth, and I said, okay, let me leave it off. I put it on off, give it a few minutes. I have my soup basically in the dark because I had the lamps, but it's not the same as the original lighting. So I went to check the panel again, and I noticed that the little there's a little snap, square little plastic snap. It was kind of off, so I pulled it out, and that's where the fuse was. I looked at the fuse. The fuse was okay, and I popped it back in, locked it because it goes in and then down. So there's a little notch in there, it locks in. And then the lights came back on. I turned back everything on. Everything was working. So let me show you in case something happens to you. Because what I did was when I put the cooler here, I pushed it back towards the cabinet where the breaker panels are, and apparently I hit that and I popped it. So let me show you real quick. Let me get my light so you can see. It's kind of dark down there. So you have to know your equipment. When things like this happen, and you know what to look for. Get my coffee there. All right, let me get you down here. Let me flip the screen so I can see what I'm doing. The breaker, there are the breakers down there. That's the switch on the lower part, and this is the fuse box. I apparently, when I pushed the cooler, it popped that. So once I put that back in, we're back in business. So you can use this as a public announcement. So it'll help you in case something happens, because some people might not be familiar with the system, and they you might even go and say, oh, the something broke and there's a short and we're gonna have to go home. And especially women that they're not familiar with their gear, their trade. I've seen a lot of women living in vans and campers, and then they're not too familiar with it. But if they're going to be doing that, if they're going to be on their own in the woods, and they better be knowledgeable. Know what you have, know how to use it, and carry protection, if you know what I mean. Can't be out there by yourself. So I installed a new fan. Man, that thing works nice. Because it was a little warm after I had the soup, and it was working nice. Then I turned it off with the remote control, went to sleep. All right, I'm gonna go outside. I'm gonna see if I can. Let me put the. Already washed my face, my teeth, and put the toothpaste back in there. Very handy. And all right, let's turn. We don't need these lights on. I'm gonna get a power bar. Let's see. Oh, I turn on the propane. Let me see if this thing is working. 52. Okay. I gotta check to see if it's on. It might be off. Because I was surprised that it turned on with the altitude here. 7,100. 7,000. Okay. Get the key. Okay. Oh, looks like it's off. Oh no, it's on. Oh wow. Okay, well we'll see what happens. Now I have to put some chucks under the wheels, and level the truck. Now this is the mess that these people made here. They did this on purpose, and look at that. Look at that mess over there. That's huge. That's about 10 feet high, and there's another one behind that. And at the end is where I used to camp. Right at the end of this. So it's a good 150 yards. I don't know if they're going to leave it there or take it, but apparently they're cleaning out the forest. It's about time, if you ask me, because I was complaining that other area. Okay, I haven't checked it. I'm not going to. It's on the other side. I'm planning on staying on this side this year. I'm not even going to visit my friends over there. Maybe at the end there's Halloween. They usually have a Halloween party. I'll probably come for that. Well, I checked the refrigerator. Temperature 76. It's not cooling. The pilot didn't go off, but it wasn't cooling, so I just turned it off. I transfer the stuff that needs to be cold, which is not a lot. I put it on the cooler with ice, and this cooler still has 2 bags of ice, almost intact since Thursday. So today's Saturday, so not bad. 3 days. There's a lot of cars going up and down here. Let's pick up, and we haven't heard a shot all day. And I was thinking of walking down the road to the end. It's about a mile. But these people are driving up there. So what am I going to be doing walking? There's no point. Okay, so the kitchen is open. And what's for dinner? You may wonder. I got the pork masas. Cut them up, and I'm going to fry them in this pan. And then I'm going to add it to one of my favorite dishes, and I showed this before, the tamal casserole. This is so flavorful. Can't tell you enough. So I'm gonna have that, and then I'll supplement it with some crackers or something. Now, you think I'm gonna eat the whole can? I'm not. Okay. I'm gonna cook this at low heat. This is Camping Gourmet. Okay, put that there. Get the lighter. Okay, put it at low heat because last time it just heated up too quickly and there were some cold spots. Okay, that's a nice. And then so basically this area is pretty much done, meaning that there's no shooting. Nobody's been shooting. I don't know further up the mountain, but you can hear the shots here pretty well. And nobody's been doing any shooting, so there's no game in this mountain. There's no point on. I don't know how many hunters are walking around. This thing is heating up pretty good. Okay, toss that in there. I think that I haven't been down to the I haven't been down to the campground. I've heard maybe 4 or 5 trucks total. And maybe 10 to a dozen. If there's going to be 2 to 3 per vehicle. I saw a guy come up with a Jeep alone, and then I saw a guy come up with a car alone. So you know what? There's probably 8 people up here, including myself. So that's why there's not enough hunters to be pushing and moving the deer around. That's one reason. So tomorrow, I was gonna hunt tonight, you know, it's already 5:30. But being that everybody's going up and down this dirt road, that's the one I was gonna have. It, I don't know. I got a feeling that I have a feeling there's no deer. Probably a couple locally around here. The two signs that I saw, I don't know how fresh they were. The beddings were fresh, so that means there's only two. And I went up to the rocks where the big bucks like to hide, and I didn't see anything. No droppings, no signs of any kind. So it's not going to be that good here. So what I'm going to do is tomorrow I'm going to head up and go out to the main road and go up another, I think it's maybe 5 miles. And then there's another turnoff. There's another road that comes back in here further up. And I'm going to go check it out. There's usually a guy that goes to that spot with a travel trailer. If I see him, I'll say hi and come over and strike up a conversation, see if he saw anything. But being that there's no shots, that's very disappointing. This is cooking nicely, very soft. And I'm going to keep half. I'm just going to eat half. I don't want to go crazy because it does fill you up a lot. And I don't like to eat to stuff myself. I'm not that type of eater. That's why I'm under 200 pounds, because a lot of people I know, they got a gut up to here. I'm a little overweight as it is. I'm about 10 pounds overweight. Okay, so let's see if one of these is nice and warm. Let's taste it. Oh yeah. Now we're gonna add it. Not off. Add it to that. Cook it some more. This is delicious. My soda is in the cooler. I gotta get it out. All right, later. Okay. Ooh la la. That's all I can say. Magnifique. Then later I'm going to have a little Presidente. I'm trying to catch up from the last time I came out. I didn't bring anything. Oh. When I was a kid, I'm talking, I don't know, 10, 11 years old, my mother and I, or my father and I think it was my father, we would stand in line at 6 o'clock in the morning for bread. For bread. And if you're not there early, let's say you get there around 8:30 or so, the bread's all gone. And we make two kinds. The long one, like the French style, with oil, and we make another one with water. That one is for sandwiches. Oh, yeah, this is good. So, I don't know what's going on now. I know a guy that he went to see some family and he took everybody out to dinner. If you're from out of the country, check this out. If you're from out of the country, you bring in dollars. You can go and eat at the restaurants for tourism. They're not open to the public. In other words, if you're a citizen, you live there, even if you have dollars that some family members send you, you can eat at those restaurants. So you're sitting there outside al fresco, eating all this beautiful food, and you see the poor people out there just sitting across the street, just sniffing it. I'm not exaggerating. Bourdain, the chef that hanged himself, which I don't believe he did, he went there. And he said, I'm kind of bothered that I'm eating all this food and these people cannot have the same. Why is that? And the escort or the guide, which is a military guy in disguise or woman, said that's the politics of the country. So, can you imagine that if somebody sends you money and you still can go and get a plate of pork and rice and beans and yuca and anything like that? That's the most stupid thing. So this guy went, spent 2 weeks, and he took the family, there were like 15 of them, took them to a bunch of cafeterias and stuff that it's in some places designated for tourism, because the designated for tourism, so those are the nicest area. You're not going to see the crumbling buildings that everybody lives on, the staircases with no railing, the collapsed balconies, all that stuff you're not going to see, because they have you cordoned off on an area for tourism only, and that's where the restaurants are. If you live there, you can't walk in there. They'll say, "Excuse me, what are you doing here?" No, you can't get in. You can't come in. They'll kick you out. So he told me that he went to a 5-star hotel at one of the most famous beaches, $200 a night, with all food and alcohol included. That's cheap. That's cheap compared to a lot of other places. Beautiful beach, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. All the Havana Club you want to drink, or whatever alcohol you want to drink, it's included in the $200. You getting married, and you want to stay in a fancy hotel for your wedding night? No, not allowed. People there, he told me that people there now, they're really having it really rough. Really rough. You can buy stuff under the table. There's a lot of black market going on. Because if somebody sends you money, dollars, under the table you can buy stuff for you and your family, but just the bare essentials. You know, don't think you're gonna have a feast or anything. And why are they letting that happen? Because they want the money. The Cuban peso is toilet paper. They were saying there was 120 to 1 Cuban peso. 120 Cuban pesos for $1. Sure. That didn't last. So what I want you to try, find a Cuban restaurant somewhere and just sit down and ask for whatever you want to taste. If you want to go for that paella, find out. You're going to be hooked on it. Man, this is good. Well, okay, so I'm going to fix myself a little brandy. Kick back. Now, man, that was good. All right. See you on the later one, on the next one. All right. Had my small dinner, did the dishes, and put everything away. Now for a drink. And all I'm missing now is my cigars. So, when I was young, I'm still young. I just don't look it, but I'm still young. And at heart, I used to fantasize about being a mountain man. I would see these movies from the 50s, and I saw this movie that was called The Big Sky. It's about a bunch of outdoorsmen hunting beaver, for pelts, and then it was a business back then. They were making hats and stuff out of them, and they would go up the Missouri River into what it is now, Wyoming and Montana, all that area. And there was a lot of Native Americans up there. Some were good, some were bad. And to me, that was very exciting. It's an adventure, and it wasn't really about the beaver. I think he care less about that. It was about the adventure. What I really liked about it, being friendly with the natives, um, trading with them, and living with in the village for a while. Um, it was a beautiful time. It was a time of exploring new territories. There were mountains that people didn't even know they were there. Just it's like Alaska, Alaska, huge wilderness, and I kind of fantasize about that. I see some people go on the rendezvous. They dress up, and um, and some people would dress the part and wear the skin hat, the coon hat and the skins and everything. And by the way, I tried a leather, a buckskin jacket. Man, that was comfortable. It fit snug. It was up in Montana. No, wait, it was Yellowstone. Yeah, I went to Jackson Hole and we went to the store and we were trying stuff. And I bought a couple of things. I don't remember what they were. Um, oh, I went into an old bookstore. It looked like it was one of those. It had a lot of everything, so it was like a Goodwill store kind of thing. They had clothing, and they had books, and they had tools. I also bought a tool that I never seen before, a small one. It's like an adjustable plier or something. Anyways, and I was looking at the book section, and I found this book with leather cover, and the title was um, Uncle something, and it was a mountain man story that he lived with the Shoshone, and he was basically around the northern part of uh, um, New Mexico, and there was a place up there called Raton, um, and somebody from the group got kidnapped, and he had to go and treat with the arrange with the chief to release him, and the chief wanted some stuff. So this is a true story, and it wasn't an original copy. I wish it was. It was a second. It was a second copy, a redone copy. But in the story, he mentions that he was also involved in the. I forget now, but in California, there's a pass. It's named after this group of people that try to go through there. They got stuck in the snow, and they ran out of food, and were turning to cannibalism. I forget the. It's at the tip of my tongue. Dover, Dover, Dover Pass. I remember, and he says that he was there, and he says that he ate human flesh. He says that there was nothing left. There was a couple of Indians in the group as guides, and the Indians were fleeing because the settlers were shooting at them. They wanted to kill them to eat them. That's how desperate it was. So the book is thick. I mean, when I started reading that book, I couldn't put it down. I could not put it down. And he settled in when he got old and big gray. There's a picture of him in the book. In the book, uh, he settled in Sacramento. I think it was Sacramento. But he, for 40 years, he was up and down those mountains, dealing with Indians and killing deer and bear, and just trying to survive. So it's very romantic when you're sitting in a nice cushy sofa with the air conditioning or your heater going and reading this. But if you put yourself in that man's shoes, or the people that were traveling through the mountains, the way they lived, the Indians, the way they lived, those guys, they were having a rough time. It wasn't leisure. It wasn't just kick back and relax like some tribes. They make them look like they're a happy family and everybody's got kids. The tribes were having a rough time because there wasn't enough animals to go around. There was a lot of competition between the tribes, and they were fighting for territory and stealing each other's territory. Like the Sioux, they stole from the Shoshone, and they also took land from the Cheyenne, and all kinds of stuff was happening. And then the mountain man they will go into the mountains for a year and try to collect enough pelts to come down the mountain and then go to a nearby town and try to sell it so he can buy some supplies to go back up, like knives, bacon, coffee, sugar, that kind of thing. It wasn't an easy life. It's very romanticized in the movies, but it wasn't an easy life. You were burning, I read somewhere, or I think I heard it on a documentary, those guys were burning 12,000 calories a day. You're going to have to eat a lot of meat to keep that up. You know, over here now they say 2,000 calories is enough for you. They were going through a lot of, because they're constantly moving. You know, get up on the horse, ride, get down from the horse, walk, cross the river, or swim, hunt this and hunt that, go into the ponds and lay out your traps, and then watch out for the Indians, and then you get into a scuffle with the Indians, and then you get attacked by a bear. You know, man, it sounded romantic, but to put myself in those people's shoes and say, okay, I'm gonna do this, even when I was young. I didn't think about that when I was young. Think about it when you're older. That you hardly can do a couple of miles. Well, those guys were doing 40 miles a day. Uh, you know, sometimes less because depending on the terrain. So my point is that living in the wild, like some people, they want to get off the grid, and man, look at those people's faces. Look at their bodies. They're they're beat to hell. They're hunched over. They're constantly working. You know, doing something around the cabin, or they're working on the skins, or they, you know, and I don't know what they get for the skins, if they get real good money or not. But man, whatever it is, I know it's a way of life for some people that wouldn't want to live any other way. But when you get to a certain age, man, you gotta hang it up already and just lay down, and you've done enough. Relax, have a beer, enjoy life, change of scenery. I mean, just to keep warm, you gotta go through what, 10 trees to have a pile of logs for your fireplace to keep warm during the winter. If you live up in the north, you know, Montana or Wyoming. I met a guy that he was working with me in Northrop, and he moved up there. He got married, and the lady had, I think her father left her a house up there, or a cabin. And he says that in the wintertime, he says you couldn't find the house. The only thing you see is the chimney. The whole house was covered. You got to go into it with a shovel to open up a path to get to the front door. That's a lot of snow. I don't know how it is now, but so imagine living under those conditions. You know, you see the movie Jeremiah Johnson by Robert Redford. Was it Robert? Yeah, Robert Redford. And it's not easy. It's not easy. Your best bet would be to join a tribe, because in the tribe there's more people to help. You know, more people to go hunting, more people to go chop the wood or whatever. Um, but when you're by yourself, living off a tent, it's not romantic at all. It's okay to do it on the weekend. We're weekend warriors. It's a lot of people that talk about what do they say, when the shit hits the fan, go into the woods and live off the land. They are, yeah, right. Good luck with that. Not gonna make it. Whatever you take in your backpack is gonna last you maybe three weeks to a month. And then what are you gonna do? I don't care if you eat a peanut a day. You're gonna be eating, you know, and drinking. Uh, to live up the land, you need a stationary place. You need a cabin. You need supplies, and you need power. You're not going to be living with candle power. That's only for emergencies. Everybody's used to the accommodations, the comforts of now, of this century. That you turn out a switch, you got light. You open your tap, you got water. This deal about getting a bucket and walking down a mountain to find a stream and get half a bucket and bring it back up, and that's not romantic at all. And then to get dinner, you have to get a gun and then hunt. If there's a lot of game, then there wouldn't be a problem. But the problem is that there's not a lot of game. I don't care where you live, unless you have a farm that you have a lot of produce on the ground and there's deer coming in, eating your lettuce and your tomatoes and whatever. Okay, well, then you're going to see more deer. But if you're going to be hunting and living off the land here, hoping to find a deer up in these mountains, you're going to starve. There is nothing romantic about it. Let's see. I don't want that flag going in. So those movies, uh, they make it look like yeah, it was an adventure. Definitely, it was an adventure. Um, back then, back then, there was a lot more game. Um, Also depends where you went. You People say there's a lot of deer now because one thing you gotta remember is that when the Indians were in the wild, they would kill anything to eat. They would kill the fawn, the doe, or the buck, and they would do that the whole year. So there was a lot less in some places, and now everything is managed. The deer population has gone up. For some reason, in California, it doesn't show, but in Wyoming, there's a lot of deer, and you see a lot of deer in some other places, Utah and Montana, Idaho, that kind of thing. But in California, I don't know what's going on. I've never seen herds of deer, jumping a fence or anything like that. And one of the reasons is why? Because the mountain lion is protected. And the mountain lion eats deer every 2 weeks. It has to. The mountain lion is decimating the herds, not the hunters. The hunters go in, like me, come out maybe twice in the season, maybe 3 times, because you got other responsibilities, and the trip is expensive, and gas and everything is expensive. So your best day is the opening day, like today. If today wasn't good, then the rest of the days are not going to be. That's always been the case. So the mountain lion in I think Idaho, you can hunt it, because if you don't do that, and I think in Colorado you can hunt it too. If you don't do that, the deer population is going to get lower and lower, and that's what's going on here. And these people know that, and that's why the lion is protected, because they want to get rid of hunting. And one way to get rid of hunting is get rid of the deer. And how do you get rid of the deer? Let the lions loose. That's the way it is. In Wyoming, I've been there a couple of times, and you can see deer off the road, off the highway. You can see them, count them. One time I had 8 deer about 40 feet away from the road on a barren hill, and they were there munching on something, and we stopped, rolled down the window, looked at them. Nobody even went like this and looked. They just kept doing their thing. I don't know if they were on a farm, but there was a fence. There was a fence on the highway. So the back in the day of Jim Bridger, and about 5 or 8 very famous mountain men, there were huge herds. In those flat areas, there are no mountain lions. Mountain lions really, they hang around the mountains and the rocks and stuff. They don't. Pretty hard to see a mountain lion on the prairies. But back then, there was a lot more deer in those areas. And the buffalo, I mean, they said there was two herds of buffaloes, and they added up to 60 million. And the assholes on the trains that were shooting them out the window, decimating the buffalo because, when there's a lot of something, people just waste it and kill it. And they were killing it on purpose so they can weaken the Indian tribes and put them in reservation. You know the story. But going back to the mountain, man, yeah, I used to, I used to romanticize, not romanticize, fantasize about, you know, going in, exploring, and then setting up a tent. And I did that with my backpacking. Backpacking is like playing house. You take all your stuff and you set up your tent, and you go to sleep in there, and then and you do your hunting, and then at the end of the weekend you pack it up and go home. But if you're a mountain man, you live there. Now imagine sleeping on the ground for so many years. Your body, man, is achy, and you're thin because you can't eat enough, and you're eating the same thing. Maybe you get fish once in a while. You sometimes have to even eat snake. Uh, no sweets, no beer, no pastries, none of the good stuff that it's in the towns. If you wanted to have some of that, you're gonna have to go down to the town. If there was one around. But I always think about the Native Americans that they had the knowledge. They were here for what, 20,000? Some people say 20,000 years. They got to know the area. They got to know the areas where the deer like to go, the pathways, the bodies of water, where there's fish, um, where there's flint, so they can make fire. Where there's that stone that they can make arrowheads. They got to know the area because they climbed everything. I found an arrowhead up here, and I'm at 7,100 feet. How in the hell did I get up here? There was no roads. How in the hell did I get up here? Back in the day, to me that's amazing. That they would just wander and wander and wander and climb and go this way and go that way. Follow a gully, follow a canyon, go through a wash, go through a gorge, and they got to know the terrain, and they claimed it their own. They said, okay, this is our area, this is our spot, and then the other tribes would know that those people were living there, and they had the other areas, and sometimes they would kind of encroach, trying to find food because it was all about finding food. The job of the Indian was to find food all the time. The women would go look for berries and nuts and roots and stuff, and the men will go and try to hunt game, any game, even if it's a squirrel. You're hungry, you gotta eat something. So it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy living like that, and they lived like that for thousands of years. Now I'm a little bit of an avid historian. I look at different cultures, how they developed, and the Europeans were cave people, same as here. And they started developing in some artwork in the caves and stuff like that. But they developed quicker for some reason. They invented a lot of stuff that the natives here didn't. They invented or discovered, maybe they discovered for somebody else. I'm not sure. But they had the wheel. The Indians didn't have the wheel. They didn't even know what the wheel was. They dug wells for water. The Indians didn't bother with that. There's rivers, but the Indians didn't have canteens. They would go drink when they found water, but they didn't have a bag to put water in, some sort of a portable canteen. They didn't invent that. There's a lot of stuff that they were way behind in the times when Europe and even China were being super advanced. I mean, China invented powder or this, you know, things like wine, uh, alcohol. There's a lot of stuff the Europeans and the Chinese or the Orientals, the Indians in India, they're a lot more advanced than the Indians here. So you start asking yourself, why is that? Because, and the reason is probably this, and I'm pretty sure it is, that there's no if you don't have no contact with another civilization, you stuck in your own civilization with your own traditions and your own routine, and you're not going to get out of that one. You're going to stay there in a circle, and every year it's going to be the same thing. You're not going to come up with a new idea because you didn't see it elsewhere. Um, Alexander the Great went into India. He learned from the Indians, and the Indians learned from them, from the Greeks. The Iranian, the Persian Empire, they invaded a few places, and they even invented the shield, like the knights of the Rhine table, that they have those steel shields. Well, the Iranians, the Persians had that, and the Europeans got it from them. Uh, every every civilization, if it has contact with another civilization of a different race, it'll learn, it'll pick up bits of information and add it to their own, and then that civilization will grow, get bigger and better, more modernized. The Indians over here, they got the horse because of the Spanish brought them, and that's about it's advances they got. They didn't do any. They weren't building out of stone or wood. They kept moving around because of basically the weather, the seasons. They were following the game because another thing, they weren't planting. They didn't know how to plant. They didn't know what to plant until they came. The Mexicans, the Aztecs, Indians. They were trading with the Pueblo Indian in New Mexico, and they started planting because that's where the corn came from Mexico. Um, but the Indians in the Americas up here, I don't know. Um, yeah, they invented the bark canoe back east, so they can travel through the rivers. That's a pretty good advancement right there. The bows and arrows are given. The lance and they had a club. They didn't have a hatchet. The hatchet was picked up from the French. That the French developed the hatchet. When they brought it over, the Indians over here they traded for it, and then it started moving. But the Indians here, they had a club with a stone on it, very primitive. Uh, so then you get invaded by a powerful modern different people with modern technology. Even though the Indians were very brave and they just attack and never mind the rest of it, they weren't scared or anything, but they went against guns versus arrows, cannon, you know, and the only thing that they could move around quick was the horse. Then the train came over, and that was the end of that. So basically, they got defeated by modern civilization, not by stronger people. Because the Indians were defending their own against the other tribes, and pretty much everybody made out, they lost a little bit here, gained a little bit there. There was a one-on-one kind of thing, challenge, and they would fight, and one got killed. But when the white race got here, or let's call it the white tribe, because they used to be tribal also, but they just got out of that sometime in the back. In the back, the Germanic tribes were very tribal. When the Romans appeared, the Romans brought civilization to the Mediterranean, from England to Morocco. I mean, everywhere they went, they invented plumbing. They built out of stone and marble and granite, and they modernized the savages that lived in the Mediterranean. The British were savages. They were naked. They were walking around naked with blue. They get that raspberry berry and they rub it on their bodies, and they were blue. And they had stones and lances and arrows also. So when the Romans came, they got civilized, modernized, little by little. So that's because they got in touch with another power that was more advanced, more civilized, and they got beaten because they came with superior weapons. And there were some fierce battles, but the Romans, they controlled the Mediterranean for what, 800 years, I think. So then the Germanic tribes came down when they was kind of weak, and there was a lot of corruption going on in the army, and the Romans came in, the Germans came in and started attacking. Then the Vandals came in, and then the Gothics came in. There's a Gothic king, I forget his name now, that he sacked Rome, and on the way out he got ill. I don't know if he was wounded, but he died before they got out of Italy. And the story goes that there's a certain town where he died, a little village, it's a town now, where he died, and the army buried him under the river. They diverted the river. They dug a tomb. They buried him with all the gold that he sacked from Rome. And he's still there. Then they brought the river back on its course. And there's a lot of old legends about things like that happening. So the reasons that the Indians here did not get modernized, because they had no contact with a modern civilization. Everybody was basically the same customs, same weaponry. You had 2 or 3 women, if you could afford it. Same thing as now. So every village is different. The thing about the women, some villages did it, some villages didn't. It depends. And that's one of the reasons that they got defeated, because they were way behind the times. Way behind the times. When these people came up with the telegraph and the train, gunpowder, a well-trained army. They weren't just fighting regular people. They were fighting armies with tactics and, in large numbers. They fought bravely. They fought well. They lasted 200 years, until finally at the end of the 19th century, the end of the 19th century, that's when it all died out. And they're still here. They're not gone. And they're living modern lives now, but they still got their old customs, their dances and stuff. So but back in the day of the mountain man, it must have been beautiful to just get on a horse without getting killed, and just wander around and just find these beautiful areas that you see them now in postcards. Beautiful open prairies and large meadows, and there's deer and bear just roaming around like nothing, because they're very peaceful. And it must have been wonderful. But as far as living like that now, some people are doing it, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. They're killing themselves just to stay alive. All right. It's going to get dark pretty soon, 6:30. All right, guys. I'll see you on the next one.